When returning a lost object, there's two uh, ways the Gemara deals with describes. One's a Siman, one's a Tavia Sign. A Siman is a external point of it. If it's red, it has a scratch in the top right hand corner. Tavia Sign is where you just know it's yours. You can't really describe it, but you know it's yours. Like if you go to an airport and they have everyone's got like a black bag. So some people tie funny colors or funny things to the bag, so then they'll know it's not just any old black bag. But when you see a black bag, you say, oh, this is my black bag. You know, it looks like everyone else's black bag, and I know this is mine. You can't give a simon to it. You can't sit down and describe someone else. Let somebody else pick up your bag for you. You can't tell them anything. Now, I said that's the Tavia sign, because there's no external thing. If you say, oh yeah, it's tied with a red ribbon on a black bag, so it has a simon. It's an external point in which you can give over to someone else. Tavia sign is a much closer relationship to the actual object, and it's not based on simonim. I don't really care. It could be ripped. Things could be changed in it. So in the bag, you'll still know it's yours. So if I say meet in front of the building and wear a red rose, so a guy can take off his red rose. He can put something else on. He can wear different shoes. Whatever simon it is, it can change it. But Dvias Ayin, he says, well, he's my friend. I know who he is. I don't need. If you're picking up your mom at the airport, you don't need her to give a simon of who she is, because you know what she is. You haven't seen her for years. It doesn't matter, because you know who she is through looking at her. So Abraham, it says in the Midrash, Abraham looked at the world and he said, you know, who is the master of this building? That there can't be a house that's full of rooms, when every room there's a candle that's lit in it and no one lit the candle. So who's the master of this house? So this is a relationship based on Simonim. As you look at the world, you find proofs of God and all these types of things. So you build a structure of something from the evidence that's there. So for example, if you listen to Beethoven, and you can be a Beethoven expert, you never met the guy. You can have ideas of who he is. You can see things through his music, but you've no idea who Beethoven is. You can make a guess. You can say he's like this, but you don't really know, because you've never met him. But you know his work. You've seen his work. You read a book about him. Even if you have someone, you read his biography. It was Michael J. Fox book. I saw a review. It says you'll want him as a friend after reading the book, something like that. That this person, after reading the book, they felt a certain connection, whatever. But it's not him. It's a book which he wrote. No matter how personal the book is, and even no matter what type of relationship he's trying to reveal in there, you never met the guy. This is all Simonim. So Avram's relationship with God is all based on Simonim. So Avram reached a certain level, and God gave him the bris bein habesarim, the covenant between the parts. And there he said, "Oh yeah, all your children are going to go to Mitzrayim in darkness and all this stuff." So later in Parshas Vayera, the end of Shemos, Moses asked God, he says, why is everybody in Egypt? What's going on here? There's a midrash that says that the whole book of Bereshis, you have the sin and then the punishment, but in Shemos you don't see the sin. So you have Adam eat the apple, he gets kicked out. You had the Mabul people were doing all this evil stuff, they all got destroyed. You had the brothers sold Yosef, all this stuff happened to them. The whole way you have cause and effect. When it comes to Shemos, what did the Jews do in order that they should be in Mitzrayim? So Vayera starts with Vayera Elokim El Moshe Ani Hashem, and Elokim, which is judgment, says to Moses, I am Hashem, which is Rachamim. So the sentence itself doesn't really make any sense. One of the first from saying that, Vayomer Elokim El Moshe, that the judgment, the midah of judgment speaks to Moses. I said, you think that the reason the Jews are in Egypt is because of judgment. It's din. No. Ani Hashem. There's nothing to do with din. There is no sin that is causing this shibud. that's causing the Yitzis, that's causing the going down to Mitzrayim. It's not the sin. That's din. Therefore, your whole question is based on the midas of din. Elokim, Moshe, you think you're talking to Elokim? No, Ani Hashem. I am Hashem. And then he says, Hashem, I never told the Avos. I never told the Avos about Yud Kei Vav Kei. Now this doesn't make any sense because you look in it says V'yomer Hashem al Avraham. It doesn't just say Elokim every time with the Avos. No, Yud Kei Vav Kei is there. So how is what's God saying there? So again, going back to the connection to this is El Shaddai. El Shaddai is the Dai means enough. El Shaddai is all about Hagbala and about restriction, and that you're creating the world, and the world's getting further away from God. And God said die. Once He said die, so it all firmed up, and then there was no more Gashmias. It wasn't, the world did not go in a more Gashmias way as it was beforehand. Meaning that the balance was stored once God said die. So again, this is a whole relationship based on the Simanim that God left in the world. But you don't really have that Hakara. If you look at the Rashi, it makes the difference between Hakara and Yediyah. And so there's a Yediyah of Hashem through the world. So you look at the world and say, oh, you'll have the Aish have 5 proofs of God or the Shirim, whatever it is. You prove God. How are you proving God? You're proving God through the Simanim. But there's another level, and that level, so all the Simanim of God are coming from the Maaseh Bereshis, the 10 Diburim of Maaseh Bereshis, the creation of the world. But there's something else, and that's called Nesinas HaTorah. Nesinas HaTorah completely changed the relationship between God and the Jews. In short, it's a move from Simanim to V'yasayin. But whenever there's an old box. You have a box. The only way that you can have a new box is if you destroy the old box first. So that the destruction of the old box is needed in order to introduce the new box. So you have to destroy the connection. You see that Pharaoh says, oh, I don't know God. Who's God? So even the idea of seeing God through the Simanim is broken. And that at the time of the Shibud of Mitzrayim, the entire point of Simanim, this whole the relationship of God and the world with creation is now changing to a new mode of Teviyah, of actually knowing God, meeting God, living with God, being God's best friend, and therefore you know everything about Him, not through Simanim but through a relationship. And therefore, whenever you have a reduction or a destruction of one box, one paradigm, one world, so therefore it gets dark. But that darkness is in order to bring out the new light, because you can't build the new box on the old box. You got to get, or else it's just going to fit in the old box. And nothing's changed. You need to remove the first box, and then the second box can come in. So therefore, God is saying to Moses, this is not din. This is that it looks like a punishment, but it's not a punishment. This is a new Gilo, it's a new revelation of God, where you're going to move from Simanim to Teviyah. So therefore, Avraham, back in the time when it seems to be a very intimate moment, when he is doing the bris bein the besarim, which is a covenant, a everlasting connection between God and Avraham. He says, "Oh yeah, your children are going to be enslaved." So the whole point there is that you've reached a level of where Simanim aren't going to work for you anymore, and therefore there has to be a removal of this old way of the world which has been going on for 2,000 years, and we're going to introduce this new thing called Nesinas HaTorah. So in the time of Moses, when he's freeing the Jews, this is when there's a revelation of the Asaras Adibros, of the Ten Commandments coming into the world, and therefore you're at like the darkest point before the dawn, of where there's the removal and there's the shibud. Therefore it gets worse as we're getting closer. And then there's that's like the 3 weeks before Tisha B'Av, and then there's the 7 weeks of the Nechamta. The 7 weeks of Nechamta goes from after Tisha B'Av to Rosh Hashanah, of where the new way is starting to glimmer, and you can kind of see something. So it's not and it's not It's not. Yeah, so I've had like a hechtige das. I don't really know what I was talking about because other thoughts come into the mind. So therefore, there's a histalkus. There's a histalkus. You remove yourself from what you're doing right now. So that's like God as He's coming into this as He's coming. That's really what Tisha B'av is, the removal of the old one, because as the new one's coming in, you have to remove yourself from the old one to allow the new one to take place. And there's a hesach hadas that starts saying things that don't make any sense or slow down, or it doesn't really sound as convincing as before, because you start to move off the das in which you're in. But when you have like a glimmer of the, oh, he's back on, he knows what he's talking about again. So then there's even if you don't really get it, there's a nechama, and then after the 7 weeks, so then the full light, the full new dawn is able to take place, so that the gallows and continuing of the gallows is because the time of Mashiach, the whole point of Tisha B'av is that
yeah, it's your brother's.
that's for you. So the whole point of Tisha B'av is in order to bring in the new light of the Mashiach, because you can't just build it on top of the old Beis Hamikdash. The Beis Hamikdash has to be destroyed. Who said it's a punishment? It's not a punishment. It's a way in order to move into a new paradigm. So you'll have an example. Someone says, why are things so bad? A lot of time the reason things are bad is because you're moving into a new paradigm. That things are waiting for you to move on into a new place which you've never been before, but it always has to remove the old, so it always looks dark. So if you're asking someone, then he says, because you're you were bad in a goal or stuff like that. So then you're going back to the old das, you're going back to the old box of din, going back to the old box of, well, there has to be a precursor, it's all about Elokim, and therefore if something good happens, it's because you did a mitzvah, and then something bad happens because you're a bad boy, and so you stick in that. So if you're asking someone, he says, oh, no, because, whatever, this is why the Holocaust happened, or whatever the point is you're just, the whole point is that you have to move. The whole point of this happening is to move away from that old paradigm. It's like, no, we're going to stay in the old paradigm, and therefore make the whole thing a bit worthless. But yeah. So the goal of life is to return your lost object. The creation is the yesh ma'ayin, and then returning your lost object is to bring the yesh back to the ayin. But in the simonim, in the returning of the object, are you going to use the simonim or the Taviyah sign?